Wow. All for One's real last name is Hey guys, I'm Truth Hero, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia chapter review. Today we'll be discussing Boku no Hero Academia chapter 237 of the manga. We'll look at everything from Little Tenko's transformation into the villain Shigure Aki, as well as some theories concerning All for One, a villain who, let's face it, just keeps getting more evil and complex as time goes on. We'll also take a look at Gigantomachia and his current rampage, because if he doesn't stop, both the League of Villains and the Liberation Army could be screwed. Maybe it's time for some heroes to get involved. Let's dive in. The chapter opens by continuing the tragedy of Little Tenko, and it's right after he killed his entire family. He still wants help, he still wants to be saved, and he talks about this itch inside his body possibly subsiding if only a hero or someone had reached out. But no one even dared go near him, and this scratching continued. Even the grandma doesn't help Little Tenko. Now, I get it, she's scared, and I probably would be too. Everyone's afraid. He's really creepy here. I mean, Frieza himself is afraid to help. But it's a bit disheartening to know that the person you'd expect the most to help a little child in need, an old lady, a grandma who probably has grandchildren of her own, just walks the other way and tells Little Tenko to wait for the heroes or police to show up. This scene and this chapter offers commentary on something that My Hero Academia has really been toying with for a while, and that's diffusion of responsibility. Now, I'm not sure when it first appeared in the story, but the first great example in my opinion is Tenko's family life. His mother, his grandmother, and his grandfather could have done more to stop his father's abusive nature, but they didn't. They didn't help a child in need, and their punishment was having their son become a monster and kill their entire family. Now, I know it's not justified, but you get the idea. Flash forward to the present, when Little Tenko is wandering the streets and he's asking for help, people just ignore him. Grandma says wait for the police, wait for the heroes to come, and society's punishment for diffusing the responsibility or not lending a hand to this poor child is creating the ultimate supervillain in Shigure Aki. It also shows us that not all heroes wear capes, and I mean this in quite the literal sense. You don't have to be some superhero to save someone. You don't have to have a badge. You don't have to have a quirk in order to just help someone. But society didn't. They didn't help a child in need, and now it's too late for Little Tenko. He's Shigure Aki now. If you believed All for One didn't have a hand in creating and sculpting Tenko into the villain he is today, it's pretty obvious by now. He chiseled that stone real good. All for One brilliantly engineers Little Tenko to become the villain he is today. It's so cool to see how he maniacally guides the emotion of a lost child towards this path of villainy. And it really shows us just how evil and calculating All for One is. He's a very patient person. I love this scene where All for One's telling Little Tenko, a very impressionable and broken child mind you, that morals and ethics are all a social construct invented by some guy who wanted harmony in the world. It really paints us a picture of All for One's ideology and his villainous nature, which we will be discussing at the end of this video. Also, if you're Little Tenko, you kinda have to believe that morality is subjective at this point. How else would you carry on after killing your entire family, or go out and commit 2 cold-blooded murders? All for One comments on how Little Tenko is holding himself back, quite literally with the hands, but also that he's locked away these memories, and he's even restraining himself when he's using his own quirk. Now, this is very important to the current arc, because it confirms what we've sort of been suspecting all along, which is that the League of Villains awakening their quirk and Shigure Aki tapping into this power isn't some power-up or quirk evolution, it's just that Shigure Aki's quirk has been OP all along. He just never used it at its full power because he never had these emotions before. It took Redestro and all these memories rushing back and unlocking for Shigure Aki to finally tap into his quirk's true power. And actually, as we see in the end of the chapter, he might get even more power. So All for One, being the caring sensei that he is, says good luck and encourages Little Tenko to go murder these 2 gangsters. Now, these 2 murders are very important because unlike when he killed his family, Little Tenko is not emotional. This is not a crime of passion. These are 2 cold-blooded killings, and they're premeditated. This means that if it wasn't when Little Tenko killed his father, this is the point where he makes that transition into the villain Shigure Aki. He's fully aware that what he's doing is wrong, and he can stop it. He's not emotional, but he decides to go through with it anyway. There's no turning back now. There's only villainy for Tenko. So Tenko kills these two thugs, but before he does, he accidentally crumbles one of the hands that he wears on his body, and this is the mask one, which is one of his father's hands. Now, after his murder spree, All For One presents him with the thug's hands and a fifth hand. I find it very interesting that this is his father's other hand, and that Shigure Aki has only ever worn his father's hand on one place on his body. Now, it's pretty obvious because that's the mask, but it sets up the end of this chapter beautifully. There's no doubt in my mind that that last hand that Shigure Aki is crumbling is his father's, and this means that the last thing that was holding him back from his true power and his true self was his father and the memory of him. Having a replacement for your father's hand? Great, but being reborn and having a name bestowed upon you by your villain foster father All For One? Priceless. For everything else, there's the Villain Visa MasterCard. No. Tomura. To mourn, as he will become a harbinger of death. And the last name, the family name of All For One, Shigure Aki. I'm so hyped that we get All For One's last name. Throughout the story of My Hero Academia, we've been getting bits and pieces of his character, his ideology, his nature, his planning, his just plain evilness, and now we finally have his family name, Shigure Aki. Shi, death, Gara, handle or grip, and Ki, tree. So his name kind of means like death grip. No, I'm kidding, of course. And I just want to find out more about All For One. But this is a huge step. It also means that All For One is not messing around with Tenko. He really sees potential in this boy for him to bestow his last name upon him. But I guess that's what you would expect for the successor of the greatest villain of all time. Now, one of the most interesting things about this chapter, and this scene in particular, is that after little Tenko kills these two street thugs and takes that final step to becoming Shigure Aki in a very cold-blooded way, he actually reminisces about killing his family. He says that he feels disgusted and sick, yet his heart is at ease, and he feels that no matter what he does, he'll always be forgiven. Now, I don't know how all of you read that, but if you're like me and you're always looking for character development, you gotta ask the question, deep down in Shigure Aki, is there still a little Tenko seeking forgiveness? Is there still a Tenko that's wishing he'd be saved? Comment below what you guys think. Could Shigure Aki still get that Star Wars redemption in the end? Again, I just can't comment Horikoshi enough on this end scene where Shigure Aki's crushing his father's hand. There's no memories of his father, no emotions, no physical hands holding him back any longer. Shigure Aki is at full 100% power with that OP quirk of his. So, if you thought Deku vs Bakugo was a good fight scene, get ready. And Gigantomachia ain't stopping for no one. Now, this is interesting to see how Dabi and Apocrypha, remember the snow jacket or ice guy, will react to this. Because they're both concerned about their leaders. They might actually have to speed up their battle so that they can both anticipate Gigantomachia and protect them. But if Gigantomachia doesn't actually reach Shigure Aki and Redestro by next chapter, or doesn't immediately, we might actually get that sweet Dabi backstory that we've all been hoping for. Then again, we probably won't. At this point, I think it's pretty safe to say that Redestro will be the one to slow down or even stop Gigantomachia's rampage. With those stress bombs, he has enough power to rival All Might or All For One, and as we've seen, Gigantomachia is at least equally, maybe even more powerful than Redestro, because apparently he was going easy on the League of Villains. Which got me thinking, why was he holding back? Now, I know Gigantomachia was very emotional in the first battle with the League of Villains. He was pretty sad and disappointed that they didn't show power of a true king, or at least one that he'd be willing to serve. But why now is Gigantomachia suddenly rushing towards Shigure Aki, and that's the only thing he's focusing on? He wants to get to him ASAP. To me, this can only mean one of two things. Theory time. 1. Gigantomachia just wants to crush Shigure Aki. And he's probably a bit pissed at him for running away too. So Gigantomachia rushes towards Shigure Aki, but Redestro gets in the way. And in order for the giant to reach the leader of the League of Villains, he has to punch his way through a very stressful CEO. But if you're Shigure Aki and the rest of the League of Villains, this works out perfectly, because this clash of these two titans who can both rival the power of All Might and All for One will certainly tire out Gigantomachia. I see Gigantomachia getting the big fat W over Redestro, but then being very, very tired. I mean, if Redestro wins, then Gigantomachia would respect him as a king, so that's not good. But I see the League of Villains finally being able to calm down and tame Gigantomachia, and Shigure Aki showing him and the entire world, I'm king. 2, maybe Gigantomachia doesn't deem anyone else worthy of fighting Shigure Aki, the true heir to All for One. So he might actually protect the leader of the League of Villains against Redestro and try to eliminate Redestro so that their fight can continue. Either way, I see the League of Villains acquiring the asset and last gift of All for One, the giant himself, Gigantomachia. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I know I've asked this like multiple times in my chapter reviews, but what happens when Gigantomachia reaches Shigure Aki? Or should I say, the rightful heir and adopted son of All for One. If you're leaving now, plus ultra to you, but join me for a discussion on everyone's favorite mysterious villain, All for One. Okay, so All for One, or should I say, Mr. Shigaraki, even Papa Shigaraki, adopted. Now, I know this chapter had this great revelation of All for One saying, "That's my last name" in Shigure Aki. And I don't want to dampen the mood on anyone who's excited about this, because I am too, but it's sort of an answer that leaves you with more questions. This is great that we find out his last name, but it doesn't mean a whole lot. Now, it does show us that, for one, All for One really does treasure little Tenko, even more than his actual father did. He gives him his last name, and that's a sign that this kid is definitely going to be the successor of All for One. There's no one else. There's no other backup plan. It's Shigure Aki the entire way, all the way. But in regards to this name Shigure Aki, it means death and grip and tree, and I'm not sure how it really relates to All for One. We know Horikoshi likes to base his naming schemes on the quirks or something about their character. Now, it could be that his first name is something that would make sense, and maybe it's like power and death grip on the entire world. But if you had asked me what All for One's name would be, I'd say something like Collected Power or Stolen Power or something like Stolen Power Villain Emperor. So it's cool that we find out his name is Shigure Aki, but without knowing any more about his character, I just need to know more. I want more backstory on All for One. We know he had a brother that had a great sense of justice, and then All for One is the complete opposite, and he's like a devil king, and he just wants to rule the world. But if My Hero Academia is going to present all these narratives like disenfranchisement and people not reaching out for help or helping a young child, and that's how we get to villainy, I want a little more substance on All for One. I want his backstory. Now, we might need another arc about villains to flesh this out, and maybe a Prison Break arc is what we need, and we can find out the origins of All for One. But it's cool that we get his name, and we know Shigure Aki is very serious in his mind, and he's going to be the ultimate villain and even surpass All for One, just like Deku will surpass All Might. We're going to keep this parallel going between Deku, All Might, and Shigure Aki and All for One. But here's my question to you. Why is All for One evil? Now, All Might, we have a little bit of his backstory. He wasn't just, I'm going to be a hero. He wants to smile, and he has a lot of his ideas from Shimura Nana and making sure people are okay, and he just wants to help people, and it's very noble. But All for One, he even told All Might that, yeah, I just wanted to be a devil king and rule the world, but it's not completely 100% satisfying to me. I want to know why All for One chose this path. You know, was he some CEO of a company and got bored? You know, and his brother had that very, very, staunch sense of justice. So All for One must have something that inside him makes him want to be evil and rule the entire world. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What is All for One's backstory? Does he have something traumatic like Shigure Aki? If so, I mean, his brother's fine, so what happened to him? Or is it something else that motivated him? Is he just some amalgamation and symbolism of greed and pure evil? Let me know your thoughts on All for One down below in the comments. And I certainly hope, and I'm not alone, that we get more backstory on the number one villain. All for one. I know Shigaraki's pretty number one at this point. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this chapter. All for one, Shigaraki destroying his father's hand, and of course, what's gonna happen between Gigantomachia, Redestro, Shigaraki, and all the other members of the League of Villains? Let me know your thoughts down below. And until next time, plus ultra.
夜